What if I told you that the collapse of a single empire in 1922 is still shaping conflicts and borders across the Middle East today? The fall of the Ottoman Empire didn't just end 600 years of history, it created the modern Middle East as we know it, with consequences that echo through every headline you see today. For over 6 centuries, the Ottoman Empire stretched across 3 continents, governing diverse peoples from the Balkans to the Arabian Peninsula. But by the early 20th century, this once mighty empire was crumbling from within and under pressure from without. Today, we're going to explore how the Ottoman Empire's dramatic collapse during World War I reshaped an entire region, created new nations, and set the stage for conflicts that continue to this day. By the end of this video, you'll understand the key factors that brought down one of history's longest-lasting empires, and more importantly, how its fall created the complex political landscape of the modern Middle East. This isn't just ancient history, it's the foundation for understanding today's geopolitical reality. The Ottoman Empire's decline didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual process that began in the late 18th century. Think of it like a massive ship slowly taking on water from multiple leaks. The empire faced what historians call the sick man of Europe syndrome. Corruption had spread throughout the administrative system. The military had fallen behind European technological advances, and the central government was losing control over distant provinces. The once feared Janissary Corps, the empire's elite military unit, had become a political force than an effective fighting force. In response to these challenges, Ottoman leaders launched the Tanzimat reforms in the mid-19th century, a comprehensive attempt to modernize the empire's institutions, legal system, and military. These reforms introduced concepts like equality before the law, regardless of religion, modern education systems, and updated military training. But here's the crucial point. While these reforms showed promise, they also created new tensions. Modernization efforts often clashed with traditional Islamic governance, and attempts at centralization alienated local leaders who had enjoyed autonomy for generations. The situation reached a turning point with the Young Turk Revolution of 1908. This movement, led by the Committee of Union and Progress, forced Sultan Abdulhamid II to restore the Ottoman constitution and promised a new era of modernization and equality. Initially, this seemed like exactly what the empire needed. The Young Turks promoted the idea of Ottomanism, that all subjects of the empire, regardless of ethnicity or religion, could be equal Ottoman citizens. It was a progressive vision for its time. However, as the Young Turks consolidated power, their policies shifted toward Turkish nationalism and centralization. This created a paradox. In trying to strengthen the empire, they inadvertently fueled the very nationalist movements that would ultimately tear it apart. Arab intellectuals, who had initially supported Ottoman reform, began to feel marginalized. Kurdish communities faced pressure to assimilate. Armenian populations found themselves caught between competing nationalisms. The empire's diversity, once its strength, was becoming a source of internal conflict. When World War I erupted in 1914, the Ottoman Empire faced a fateful decision. After being rejected by the Allied powers, the empire entered the war on the side of Germany and Austria-Hungary in November 1914. This decision proved catastrophic. The empire found itself fighting on multiple fronts, against Russia in the Caucasus, against Britain in Mesopotamia and Palestine, and defending the Dardanelles at Gallipoli. While the Ottomans achieved some notable victories, particularly at Gallipoli, the overall war effort drained the empire's resources and exposed its military weaknesses. The war also saw tragic events that would haunt the region's memory. The Armenian deportations of 1915, which resulted in massive loss of life, represented one of the darkest chapters in this period. These events created lasting trauma and contributed to the empire's loss of legitimacy among its diverse populations. Meanwhile, the British were making conflicting promises to different groups. They encouraged Arab revolt against Ottoman rule through correspondence with Sharif Hussein of Mecca, promising Arab independence. Simultaneously, the secret Sykes-Picot Agreement divided Ottoman territories between British and French spheres of influence, and the Balfour Declaration promised support for a Jewish homeland in Palestine. When the Ottoman Empire finally collapsed in 1922, the victorious Allied powers didn't simply grant independence to the former Ottoman territories. Instead, they created the Mandate system under the League of Nations, essentially a form of international trusteeship. Britain received mandates for Iraq, Palestine, and Transjordan, while France took control of Syria and Lebanon. This system was supposed to prepare these territories for eventual independence, but in practice it often served the strategic and economic interests of the mandatory powers. Here's where things get really important for understanding today's Middle East. The borders drawn during this period often ignored ethnic, religious, and tribal realities on the ground. Iraq combined three distinct Ottoman provinces with different sectarian majorities. Syria and Lebanon were carved out to serve French interests. Palestine became a focal point of competing national movements. These artificial boundaries created states with diverse populations that sometimes had little in common beyond their shared colonial experience. This legacy continues to influence regional politics today. The collapse of Ottoman rule unleashed powerful nationalist movements across the region. Arab nationalism emerged as a major force, with intellectuals and political leaders calling for Arab unity and independence from European control. In Turkey itself, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk led a successful war of independence against Allied occupation forces, establishing the Republic of Turkey in 1923. Atatürk's reforms were radical. He abolished the caliphate, introduced secular law, adopted the Latin alphabet, and promoted Turkish nationalism over the multi-ethnic Ottoman identity. Kurdish nationalism also emerged during this period, though Kurdish aspirations for statehood were largely ignored in the post-war settlement. This created a Kurdish question that continues to influence regional politics across Turkey, Iraq, Iran, and Syria. Meanwhile, Zionist immigration to Palestine increased, setting the stage for the Arab-Israeli conflict that would define much of the region's subsequent history. All of the Ottoman Empire also triggered massive economic and social changes. The discovery of oil in the region during the 1920s and 1930s transformed the economic landscape, making the Middle East strategically vital to global powers. Traditional trade routes that had connected the Ottoman Empire were disrupted, forcing communities to adapt to new economic realities. Urban centers that had thrived under Ottoman rule sometimes declined, while new cities emerged around oil fields and colonial administrative centers. The Mandate system introduced European legal codes, educational systems, and administrative practices creating a generation of Middle Eastern elites educated in European languages and ideas. This cultural transformation had lasting effects on the region's intellectual and political development. The fall of the Ottoman Empire represents one of history's most consequential geopolitical transformations. What began as the collapse of a declining empire became the foundation for the modern Middle East's political structure. We've seen how internal decay, rising nationalism, and the catastrophe of World War I combined to bring down 6 centuries of Ottoman rule. More importantly, we've explored how the empire's collapse created new states, new conflicts, and new identities that continue to shape the region today. The artificial borders drawn by colonial powers, the unresolved national aspirations of various peoples, and the competing promises made during World War I created a complex web of relationships that still influences Middle Eastern politics. From the ongoing Kurdish struggle for recognition to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, from sectarian tensions in Iraq to the civil war in Syria, many of today's challenges can be traced back to this pivotal period. Understanding this history doesn't provide simple solutions to current problems, but it does offer crucial context for why the Middle East remains such a complex and strategically important region. The Ottoman Empire's fall didn't just end an era, it began the ongoing process of defining what the modern Middle East would become. What aspect of the Ottoman Empire's collapse do you find most significant for understanding today's Middle East? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let me know which specific country or conflict you'd like me to explore in more detail in future videos. If you found this historical analysis helpful, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the events that shaped our modern world. Thanks for staying with me until the end. Take care and see you in the next video.